Hi guys, welcome back to the Pageant project. Hope you're doing well. In today's video, in this week's video, I wanted to cover something a little bit different, and that is why does losing a pageant hurt so much? Now, I know that sometimes we don't like to use the word lose, and certainly just because you didn't walk away with the title doesn't mean you are a loser. There's a lot you can take, and I encourage you guys all the time to take so much from pageants that it doesn't hinge on whether you win or not. Things like the skills that you learn, the network you build, and I stand by that. But still, at the end of the day, if you're even somewhat competitive, and I know the vast majority of you are, you aren't going there just to make up the numbers, are you? You're going there because ideally you want to win. And I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about if you're competitive to say that you're going there to win. And it's natural, I think, to be disappointed when you don't. Having said that, I know there are many people who just want to enter a pageant basically for the fun of it, to meet other people, and they really couldn't care less about the result, and that's fine too. All power to you. In fact, you might be able to ride out the emotional highs and lows a bit better than most. But if you're someone who's gone back home and the pageant hasn't turned out exactly the way you wanted, you'll know about this thing called pageant hangover, this sort of depression or malaise that very often follows when you get back from a pageant. And I say this having come back from obviously Miss Volunteer America relatively recently, and I didn't compete, obviously. But even for me, coming back home, it feels a bit like a letdown. There's a period of, I don't know if mourning is quite the correct term, but there certainly is a moment of adjustment that needs to be made. And I wanted to sort of dive into that and give you my thoughts as to why I think that's the case. And the reason for doing this is not so that you can tell other people, see, I told you pageant hangover was real. I have a right to be depressed. You just wouldn't understand because you don't do pageants. No, that's not the reason I'm doing this. The reason I want to do this is I'm hoping that a bit of self-awareness or an awareness as to what might be causing the hangover, the letdown, or the depression maybe will help you get through it a little bit faster. I think if you've ever been through therapy or you've had a therapeutic discussion, you'll know that when push comes to shove, you have to admit there's a problem. You can't begin the healing process until you admit, yes, there's a problem. And yes, I'm the one that needs to do something about it. You can get help, but it all begins with self-awareness. So I'm going to give you 10 reasons or 10 thoughts here. These are not in any particular order, and these are more musings. But again, the point is to, if you hear one of these 10, you go, I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe that's why I'm feeling a bit down or a bit sad or I'm missing everyone. And again, hopefully that will help you through your healing process or your recovery process. And by the way, you might even be going through a version of this even if you won the pageant. So let's go through this. So number one, it only happens once a year. Now, this is assuming obviously that you are doing one pageant, one system, and you're sticking with it. No shade on those of you who move from system to system, but some people have, even if you're doing other pageants, let's say at least you have the one ultimate pageant that you want to win. And generally, that pageant is going to happen once a year. Miss Volunteer America happens once a year. Miss America happens once a year. Miss USA happens once a year. And so if you don't win, or it doesn't go quite the way that you wanted it to, it's not like, let's say, tennis. If you know me, you'll know I use tennis analogies a lot because I was a tennis coach and that's my sport. So that's the analogy that I'll draw. But in tennis, no matter what tournament you lose at, even if it's the biggest one, probably Wimbledon or the US Open or whatever it is, by and large, when you're a professional tennis player, there's a tournament next week. And so, yes, you lost this week, but you get another chance to do it better next week. And the person who beat you this week, you might get a chance to get your revenge on them next week. But pageantry isn't like that. It's once a year. And you think of it, it's almost like the Olympics, which is once every 4 years. I mean, can you imagine if you're competing for the 100-meter dash, less than 10 seconds, and you're preparing for that your entire life, and then you have to deliver for less than 10 seconds out of that 4 years to achieve your goals. And if anything happens, that can be all of that gone. So that's reason number one. I think it only happens once a year. And so there's a bit of time pressure on you. Number two, you don't get unlimited attempts at this. By and large, pageantry has an age limit. Even if there is no age limit, if you're honest, you'll know that there's probably an age range during which you're in your pageant prime, so to speak. Again, exactly the same as a competitive sport. And so let's say there is a hard age limit, whether it's 25, 28, 30, 35, whatever it is. if it's your last year where you're eligible to compete, or let's say you feel like you're running out of time, a year or another year where you feel like, oh, I didn't win, oh, I didn't do as well as I could have, or God forbid you did worse than last year. Again, that's that bit of time pressure, and it can feel like, oh my God, I've only got 1 year left to win this, or that was my last year, and I'll never get another chance. That's an additional pressure on top. So you don't get unlimited tries by and large with pageantry. That's point number 2. Number 3, you gave it everything. You give it everything. Most pageant girls, when they're going for a big title, will leave it all on the table. Blood, sweat, and tears. You guys will know this. You'll do all the effort, especially for your physical prep. If it's a more model-centric pageant, if it's a service-based pageant, you'll do hundreds, maybe hundreds of hours of service. And I get you might do that normally with or without the pageant anyway, and more power to you. But still, you've done a lot of service. You might have put so much effort into your talent, into your appearances, and it's not just something by and large that you just show up to and you participate in for the weekend or the week, and then you go home and that's it. The more effort you put into something, by and large, I think the more it's going to hurt when it doesn't go your way. And I know I've met so many people who have poured their, not just blood, sweat, and tears, but heart and soul into winning a pageant, and then it doesn't go their way. And that can be absolutely crushing. So again, it's kind of like the other two. So with it only happening once a year and you don't get unlimited tries, again, like if it's just a tennis tournament, yes, you might have put all the years of prep into it, but it doesn't quite feel the same because you get to do it again later. And it's just a tennis tournament. You don't feel maybe like you had to put so much of your soul into it. You were just training to be faster, stronger, better. That's a maybe. You might feel differently if you're doing competitive sport, and certainly if you're doing something like an Olympic sport where it's only once every 4 years, that's a bit of a different story. But I think overall, the more you put into it, the more it's going to hurt if it doesn't go your way. That's number 3. Number 4, there's a lot hinging on one outcome. I've just got my list here if you see me looking down. And that's really where you place all of your future plans, all your life plans, and you base them on, oh, when I win the pageant, then this will happen. If X happens, then Y happens. So if I win the pageant, then I get to do. And then you have a list of whatever it is, all these opportunities, walking in a fashion show, starting a nonprofit, etc., etc., etc. You have so much riding on the result of the pageant that when it doesn't go your way, it's not just a pageant loss anymore. It's a loss of identity, it's a loss of purpose, it's a loss of goals. Frankly, it's a loss of a life that you had envisaged in your mind. And you will quite literally go through a mourning period because you feel like that life you no longer get to lead. And I don't ever advise anyone to plan a pageant like this, to have all your plans hinging on winning the pageant. But sometimes you don't know better, and sometimes even though you do know better, you subconsciously build so much, you have so much riding on the pageant, that again, losing isn't just a loss of the pageant. It's a loss of identity, it's a loss of purpose, it's a loss of fulfillment, it's a loss of possibility. And that's why it can really, really hurt. Again, I advise you not to plan like this. I advise you not to have so much hinging on the result of a pageant. But if you do, even if it's on a subconscious level, that's a big reason why losing a pageant can hurt so much. So that's number 4. Number 5, and this is one that I've given a lot of thought to. It feels really personal. When you lose a sporting event, again, I'll go back to tennis. Of course, it sucks, right? The bigger the event, the more it sucks. The more you put into it, the more it sucks. But you kind of know, okay, on the day my opponent, at least in tennis, if it's a team, it's different. But in tennis, okay, my opponent was better. There's an objective reason for it. They hit the ball harder. They moved faster. They were more in shape. Their technique is better. All these objective things, they're very objective rules when it comes to any sport. The ball has to go a certain place, land a certain place at a certain time, then you win a point. It's not a subjective thing. It's like, oh, I think that person's a better player, so he wins that point or she wins that point. That doesn't happen in sport by and large. But in pageantry, it's also objective. Even if you have scoring rubrics, scoring guidelines, at the end of the day, it's still a judge, a subjective judge who has to give you the marks according to that rubric. And I think losing a pageant is not really like losing a sporting event. I think it's more like getting rejected by someone that you have a really big crush on. Because I think it feels personal. You're not losing because your technique was worse or you were slower than your opponent. It feels like, oh, you thought that person was better than me. And I know you might not ever consciously think of it that way, and I certainly advise you not to, but subconsciously it might feel, and again, think about it. If you have a big crush on someone, you're dating someone, and then they say to you, actually, it's not going to work out between us. It's not you, it's me. I like this person more. That's not like losing a point in a sporting event. That's like a very personal, and it is a very personal rejection. Of course, there are different ways of framing that, but that's something that you guys in pageants have to deal with. It's like, it's not just I lost. It's almost like I feel like you've rejected me. The judging panel rejected me. Here I am. I poured my heart and soul into this, and it still wasn't good enough. You don't like me. I'm not worthy. That slippery slope. That is something that you have to find a way to deal with in pageantry. So that's number 5 for me. It feels really personal. It shouldn't, but it does. And to deny that, I think maybe you don't feel that way, in which case that's great. But I know that for a lot of you, when you lose a pageant, it's not just a loss, it feels like a deep personal rejection. Again, I liken it more to dating, because it's not like the best people on paper always make the best couple. And you can have people who look very compatible and tick all the right boxes, but it still doesn't work out. So, you can agree or disagree with me, let me know. Number 6, the social pressure and public attention. Now, this is because when you're doing a pageant, normally you announce it to the world. It's very public. You may have family fly in, to watch you compete. You certainly might have friends tuning into the live stream. You might have coaches supporting you, yada, yada, yada. You might have a fan base. And if you lose, you sometimes feel like, oh, I didn't only let myself down. In fact, you might go, I can deal with that, but I felt like I let everyone else down. These people who flew from the other side of the country or the other side of the world to watch me compete, and I didn't even make the final or the top 10 or whatever it was. That's another level of pressure. And it's not just applicable to pageantry, it's applicable to a lot of other things. But in pageants, we're almost always very public about it, because that's part of it. You need to talk about your advocacy. You talk about, you announce on social media the fact that you're competing. And so you're very public. Everyone kind of knows in your circle that you're competing. And so if you don't do as well as you planned, or you don't do as well as everyone said you were going to, that can, I don't want to say that can suck. I've used that phrase too many times, but it certainly can feel deeply embarrassing, or you feel like you let everyone else down. And so you've got this extra weight that you didn't just let yourself down, that you feel like you let everyone else down. And frankly, that can feel worse. So that's something also that I think adds to the burden of losing. Number 7, comparison culture. This is where you don't win and you see the person who won and you go, but why? Like, why? Like, I fit all the criteria that you guys said better. I thought I walked better. I thought I spoke better. I'm sure I spoke better. I know I put more work into my advocacy. I did all the hard work, and you still didn't pick me. And look, a lot of this can be slippery slope type questioning, and I encourage you not to do that. But whenever you look at someone who beats you, again, in tennis or any sport, when you look at someone who got the better of you on the day, I look at it as a learning experience. There's that old saying, though, you either win or you learn. It's not win or lose, you win or learn. And so whenever I lose at an event like a sport, I'm looking at it going, okay, what can I do to improve? I don't like being down in the dumps for long. I look forward to actually getting back on the court and getting to practice and working on the thing that let me down, the technique, the mindset, whatever it was, and then getting a chance to prove it again. But in pageantry, the answers to those questions are not always clear, because you can look at it and go, well, hang on. I've had some personal experiences with pageant awards. I've been nominated for pageant awards and then looked at the person who won and went, hang on, or look at the pageant brand that won and went, hang on. I've interviewed more people. The people I've interviewed have had bigger titles. I've interviewed from more countries all around the world. I've had more views. My following is bigger. I'm confused. How did I lose again? And so I didn't really care, because I didn't really care about that award. But that's what I'm saying, is when you lose a pageant or you don't make the top 10 or whatever it is, it's very easy sometimes to look at it and go, hang on, I don't get it. Because you don't get that objectivity. You're not scored based on views. You're not scored on a technique. You're not scored on who got more points on, you do get scored on points, but it's not like, again, a sport where, oh, you got a goal, I got a goal, but I got more goals, so I win. And so it can, again, be that bit of a slippery slide where you just want to catch yourself and go, hang on, I know this isn't going to go anywhere productive. And so you start doing the comparison. At the end of the day, it's really the judges gave someone else more marks. If it's done well, did the pageants run well? There is a reason, even if you don't know it. And you got to trust that reason was a sensible one that's aligned with the system. Every now and then, though, it's not. And the judges just picked who they liked more on the day. And that comes back to the whole, it feeling deeply personal. It's because sometimes the reason you lost is not clear. And it can just feel like they didn't like you. And you don't want to think like that. But I know in the moment, it's very easy to. So again, this is just a self-awareness. Just if you're going, okay, maybe, yes, I've been guilty of thinking like that. And I'm not even saying that it's unjustified, but it's like, it's not going to help you. So this thought process is not going to help you. Stop it as soon as you can. It's all right to have it for a moment, a day, or a week, let's say, but probably no longer than that. It's not going to take you to a good place. We've got number 8. So that was number 7's comparison. Number 8's a post-pageant crash. I mean, I don't need to say anything about this one. You come back, had an amazing week, you've met amazing women, and this is one that really can apply as much to the winner as much as anyone else. Is you come back and you go back to your life and you're missing all of that. You're missing the adrenaline, the appearances, meeting amazing people. This is also why I say you have to create an amazing life outside of pageantry to really succeed in it, because you don't want a life that you're dreading to go back to because your life by comparison is so boring. I get it. It'd be very unlikely that you have a life that's quite as exciting as a big national pageant, but you do want to make sure that you're creating a life that you love, that fulfills you. And so that post-pageant crash, when you go back, there's that loss, the adrenaline drop. It's very normal to feel like you just want to go home, lie on the couch, watch Netflix, eat a pint of chocolate chip ice cream or whatever floats your boat. Just be aware that there's that adrenaline drop. I do say, I think one of the best ways of countering this is to have something planned for after the pageant. So whether that's a weekend away with your partner, catching up with some friend that you didn't get to catch up with during pageant prep because you were so busy, have something to look forward to afterwards, because otherwise you might not be in the mood to plan anything when you get back from the pageant. So sometimes it's a good idea to plan that in advance. And look, if you win, you get to have an extra adventure anyway on top. But this is one that I think affects the winner as much as anyone else, because the winner probably is looking on the whole event with even more rose-tinted glasses than someone who didn't win. And then she still has to go back to ordinary life as well, within reason. She probably has other things to do with the title on her head. So that's number 8, the post-pageant crash. Number 9 is a no clear next goal. Now, I just alluded to this, saying that you probably want to have something planned, like a getaway or an adventure. But you also want to have a goal, I think, for your personal life, your professional life, like what's next. And you may not have planned it specifically, but you want some idea as to, okay, pageant's over, now I've got to concentrate on XYZ. So for example, I got back from Miss Volunteer America and I have to finish writing, or I'm excited to finish writing this beginner's guide to pageantry, because that's something that I really feel needs to be out in the industry, needs to be done. And so I've actually, if anything, been putting too much focus into that. Might be ADHD brain, but sometimes you get focused on something and you forget to eat, you forget to sleep, you forget to take a shower. People think you died because you haven't been out in the sun for a whole week. They don't know what's going on. But it's good to have some sort of motivating goal outside of pageantry or for after the pageant. Not just emotionally, professionally and all that stuff, but just physically as well. Because a lot of you get into such phenomenal shape for a pageant, and I understand it might not be sustainable. You might have that last minute cut or whatever it is. That might not be sustainable. But if you don't have an ongoing goal for fitness, something that you can enjoy, you got to be careful, because you might start putting on a lot of weight right after the pageant because you're suddenly not working out all the time because there's not that motivation, not that pressure. You start eating unhealthy, and then before you know it, you don't like what you look like in the mirror. And by the way, I think we can all resonate with that. I certainly can during COVID, so no judgment on you. But yeah, set some goals for after the pageant as well. That's number 9, so no clear next goal. Number 10, you tied your worth to the result. I think I've spoken enough about this one in all the other stuff I've done. This tying your validation. Well, validation is poison. It's really, really dangerous. To have your self-worth and validation tied up in anything external is a bad idea. To have it tied up in something that is so as unpredictable as pageantry and can seem so subjective and seem so unfair at times, that's just a terrible idea. Like, to me, that almost seems like a recipe for becoming highly anxious and highly depressed and putting yourself at severe mental health risk, because your validation is so important. Your self-worth is so important. So much hinges on it. You want to make it as impervious to attack as possible. You want to make it as easy as possible to feel worthy. And look, as an overachiever, I get that you might go, oh, but if I just feel worthy and love myself for doing absolutely nothing at all, then I'm never going to get anything achieved or accomplished. And that's nonsense. because you're always going to achieve if you're an overachiever. And by the way, people achieve more when they're happy. You'll know this if you've had a kid or you work with children or work with teenagers or anyone. People don't tend to like being yelled at or to be made to feel horrible. If you yell at someone to get a job done, what happens? Do they do more or do they do the bare minimum? This is the thing. Like, you might yell at someone, yell at your kid, yell at your friend, and they might do what you want them to do, and they're there and now. But because you've yelled at them and you've made them feel bad, they resent that. No one likes to be made to feel bad or embarrassed in front of other people, and so they do the bare minimum. But if you can encourage someone and help them discover that intrinsic motivation, they won't just do the bare minimum. They'll go to the ends of the earth for you and for themselves. And so you got to look at it as like, well, treat yourself like an employee or your best friend. And there's a question, if you treated your best friend the same way that you treat yourself right now, would your best friend still be your best friend? Or would there be a massive friendship breakup? And so encourage yourself as far as you can without having the need to go, oh, but I didn't get this, I didn't win, I didn't get the result, and so I should feel bad. No, it's going to feel much better if you can feel good for no reason. If you can feel good for no reason, grateful for no reason, then you're going to accomplish more. Accomplish happily rather than waiting to be accomplished before you give yourself permission to feel happy. And that's a big thing. That's a big game for all of you overachievers out there. I know that you are almost waiting. Well, not that you're almost. You are waiting. You think that the game is rigged in such a way that you need to accomplish to feel happy. And I'm here to tell you that can work short term, like yelling at someone to do something can work short term. But long term, it doesn't work because you will spend so much time being unhappy. You're going to burn yourself out. And even if you do accomplish that one thing, you know what's going to happen. It's like, well, what now? You might be happy. You think accomplish this big, I'll be happy for forever. No. Tends to work, what might give you a week, a month. Like if you won a big pageant, the pageant of your dreams, how long would you be happy for? Before you started looking at what's next, would you be happy for a week, a month, 6 months, a year? What happens when you give up that title? Then what? So do you see what I mean? It's like, yes, I understand that you want to accomplish a lot, but don't feel that you need to beat yourself up to do it. And don't hinge your self-worth and your validation and how you feel on anything that's external. Have that filled up. Fill up that cup as much as you can with internal, intrinsic stuff that is in your control, that you can do every day, and make it super easy. Make it super easy to be proud of yourself. So many of us make it really difficult to be proud of ourselves and really easy to feel bad about ourselves. It's like, oh, I woke up at 8:05 rather than waking up at 8. Oh, I didn't get to the gym 6 times. I only got to the gym 5 times. We make it so easy to make us feel bad about ourselves. And we make the game of feeling good about ourselves or feeling proud about ourselves, we make that game impossible to win. I don't have to tell you that's a really bad idea. Again, if you don't believe me, imagine you set that up for your child or for your friend and said, I'm going to make you feel terrible all the time. And you're never going to be allowed to feel good because that game's going to be so difficult, but you're going to feel terrible all the time. And you know why? It's because I think that will help motivate you. No. Never in a million years. So those are the 10 things that I think make losing a pageant, or can make losing a pageant, really hard. We'll go through them one more time. So number 1 only happens once a year. Number 2, you don't get unlimited tries because of the age thing. 3, you gave it everything. You put your heart and soul into it. Number 4, you have everything hinging on one outcome. All your plans hinge on, if I win this, then I get to do my life. Number 5, it feels really personal. Number 6, the social attention. Everyone knows you're doing it and you don't want to feel like you let other people down. Number 7, comparison, comparing yourself especially to the eventual winner. Number 8, that post-pageant crash. Number 9, you didn't have a goal past pageant time. And number 10, you tied up your validation, your worth to the result. And again, I didn't do this video because I want you to now go, I didn't do this video because I wanted to give you permission to feel terrible, although you have my permission because, how you feel is how you feel. I'm hoping that if I opened up this discussion and you can resonate with at least one of these points, that you'll go, I get it. Now I know why it's happening. And with that self-awareness, hopefully you can move through this difficult time a little bit faster, a little bit more elegantly. And certainly if you compete in pageants again and again, and you're like 99% of people who lose a hell of a lot more than they win, not dreading the loss so much, not quite having so much tightness and pressure on you. So hopefully you can take a bit more time, or you can to enjoy it, or you can enjoy the process a bit more. rather than having your enjoyment hinge on, oh, I'll enjoy it if I win, and if I don't win, I'm going to hate it, rather than being quite like that, maybe it would be more useful to actually enjoy the process. So, as usual, I would love to know your thoughts on this. What's worked for you in terms of dealing with pageant losses? What hasn't worked, if you're brave enough to share that? If you've been through like a post-pageant slump, but maybe you've actually had it 2 or 3 months. I had a friend who dealt with basically depression after she didn't win the pageant, couldn't leave the house for months. And so have you been through something like that? You know, what eventually got you out of that? What helped? What didn't help? Let me know in your thoughts. Send me a message or put a comment below if you're one of our paid members, or you can send me an email, info@thepageantproject.com. And I think that'll about do it for this week, because I know there's a lot of pageants happening at the moment. And because there are a lot of pageants happening at the moment, there are a lot of you who aren't winning pageants at the moment as well. Because let's be real, 99% of us get on that stage, we aren't winning. There's only one winner at the end of the day normally. And so learning how to deal with a loss, in inverted commas, is a really important part of the game, the mindset game, the mental game. And I don't think we talk about it enough, because there's this sort of faulty thinking that if we think about how we're going to deal with a loss, that we're more likely to lose. And I think that's just silly talk, because that's like ignoring the fact that something bad could happen. It's like what they say, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I think you always want to be prepared. So for me, as someone who likes to be prepared, I want to know what the potential outcomes are, even the bad ones, probably especially the bad ones, so that I can prepare for it. Not so that I make it more likely to happen. I know a lot of you like to talk about manifestation, and we can get into an argument about that, but I don't buy that we manifest everything in our lives, because point blank, if you're like me and you've had terrible, tragic things happening to you or to loved ones for no reason, you know you didn't manifest that. Like if you're in a car accident out of nowhere, or you have a sudden health scare, or a loved one, God forbid, has a sudden health scare, you know you didn't manifest that. And so we can have an argument about manifestation, whether I believe it or not. I do believe in positive thinking, by the way, in terms of it's good to think positively. But I think also you need to have the self-awareness that just because you think positive doesn't mean it's going to happen. And if it doesn't work out the way you wanted to, that's not on you. That's not your fault. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, for better or worse. That's life. We don't all get to walk away with a crown at the end of it. And you know what? Real talk, you might do 100 pageants and never walk away with a crown. And so I think accepting that and knowing what to do about it and what it means and what it doesn't mean about you is a really big part of the game. But I don't think we talk about it enough, because most people think that's negative or planning to fail. And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's being smart. It's being intelligent. I don't want you to think negatively, but I want you to be aware that negative things can and will happen. And so hopefully we've opened up that conversation. So let me know your thoughts on this. I've talked more than long enough. I'll see you next week.